to a special edition of the Darden Admissions Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share a recent installment from our ongoing Faculty Spotlight series, the series we call Office Hours, featuring Anthony Palomba. Anthony is a member of the Data Analytics and Decision Sciences faculty area here at the Darden School of Business, and he and I recently connected to talk more about his background, what led him to Darden, what stories he's tracking in the world of media, entertainment, gaming, and more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. Now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Professor Anthony Palomba. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for your time. It's great to see you.
Brett, it's great to be back. It's really cool that I'm a repeat guest. I'm thinking like the guests on SNL. I think after 5, you get like a jacket. So I'm going to be looking out for a Darden jacket if I make it on a third time.
I love that. We need to get more of a budget for office hours. That's what you're telling me. So, Anthony, for folks who didn't attend the previous conversation we did maybe a year plus ago, tell us a little bit more about you and your background.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I was in the comm area at Darden, but increasingly have been doing a lot of quantitative research. And so my area of research is media, audience consumption, entertainment firm strategy. Since I've been at Darden, I've completed machine learning boot camps. I'm currently a part-time MS in economics student, hence the move. And so I'm incorporating machine learning, econometrics into analyzing TV scripts and, thinking about different story arcs and how arcs might actually quantitatively predict viewership in millions for the next episode, right? Right now, actually, as of last night, I put together a data set of 1,400 movie scripts, 10K financial reports, as well as earnings sentiment to understand how the momentum of movies, the story arcs themselves, might actually have an impact on stock price, earnings sentiment calls, all of those things that we begin to think about when we question what the value of a particular artwork is. So I'm trying to really get into things like portfolio theory and other mechanisms to understand how we can evaluate art differently in the 21st century.
Yeah, that is super interesting. And I feel like it's probably very relevant at a time where it feels like the entertainment world is very fragmented. So many different players vying for your entertainment dollar. We're all on variety of screens, small screens, big screens. People want to go to the movies anymore? Do they just want to watch at home? All these kinds of questions, very central.
Yeah. It is very, very difficult, I think, to pinpoint where consumers want to go, where they want to be. But if anything, Backrooms, Obsession, these movies that have had shoestring budgets that have absolutely blossomed at the box office with multiples of 20, 30, and 40 in that range really demonstrate that, in fact, you don't need a lot of money to win over audiences. A good idea still works, and a good idea will still get young people to the movie theaters, to a traditional platform, pardon me. And so I think there's also this question of how much risk do you want to take on when you're thinking about allocating capital effectively for a movie slate, right? For a movie portfolio. And I think especially with YouTube serving as kind of as a new Sundance or a new Toronto International Film Festival venue, we're able to see up and coming artists who maybe did not go to Tisch or top media or art school or film school and be able to show what they can do and then kind of rise to the occasion if they are plucked by one of these major studios or distributors.
Yeah, Backrooms and Obsession, both their directorial debuts, and I think a real YouTube connection for those directors.
Absolutely. And so they demonstrated a following. They demonstrated once again that an idea is king. And Jeff Katzenberg said content is king, though distributions and platforms are king makers. And so there is this constant tug of war, if you will, between content, between platforms. Right now, I would argue that we're in a very much distribution platform era. But I do think that is going to fracture and bend in the next few years. A lot of AI tools have come out. Artists are feeling more and more empowered to create without the guidance or without the financial backing of studios. They're kind of going out and doing their own thing. I posed this question to my MBA students during my media and entertainment business class. Do we need studios? in 10, 15 years? Or if we do, what is their new function? Because I don't know that we need them for every step of the way anymore. It's an interesting, I think, provocative question to ask when we think about labor, when we think about how to organize, when we think about even what the future of work might look like.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about those 2 movies. A lot of focus on the fact that, these are folks who were discovered on YouTube, brought to the big screen. The cost of the movie as a result, very, very low cost. There's been other examples of low cost movies having huge hits, all the horror movies, Bloomhouse, stuff like that. But these 2 seem to be in a slightly different category and are getting a lot of buzz for that reason.
I think part of that also kind of stems from the fact that these are, if you remember the clothing line, FUBU, for us, by us, which was, really for the African American community in the 90s, that's kind of the brand and the smell and the sense that are coming out from these movies. Like there is a for us, by us sentiment when your directors are, what, 19 and 22 respectively. This is coming out of Gen Z, and these are undeniably Gen Z properties. It's not Jurassic Park 8, it's not Transformers 12, right? These other properties that have been spinning, even Star Wars, they're 50 years old, they're 40 years old, they're 30 years old. Thinking about IP that is made in the moment for people really rings authentic at a time in which there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of AI slop out there. It's very easy just to make garbage. And so something that is authentic, something that speaks to the Gen Z experience, people are going to be like moths to a light, no question. And both of those IPs also demonstrate novel yet familiar. I mean, we've seen movies with, romance movies that have turned violent, right? I think of Fatal Attraction back in the 80s, right? And other movies like that. But we've never seen those kinds of elements come together. It's the same thing with Stranger Things, right? Stranger Things was a hit, not because it was so nuanced, but because it put elements together quite differently. It's got Goonies, it's got E.T., it's got all of these things that we're familiar with, but it's placed together in a way that hasn't been seen before. That's what good art does. And there's also this balancing act, I would argue, between satiating your audience and challenging them, right? Do you want to give your audience bags of Doritos, which you can find on TikTok, you can find on a lot of different places, or do you want to give them tiramisu, right? Do you want them to really have a slow burn in the kind of content that they're consuming? And there's this constant buying, as you'll see across all kinds of TV shows, all kinds of movies, with how much do you challenge your audience versus how much do you just simply satisfy them?
Well, it's interesting to think about these 2 movies as well in this landscape where I feel like the movie landscape has been dominated by IP related movies, like a Marvel universe or Star Wars. It's just more of this because there's been a lot of conversation in the movie world about how there's not a mid-level movie that gets married. There used to be like a type of movie that would have maybe a star or 2 attached to it, maybe an interesting plot. It wasn't a blockbuster, it wasn't low budget, but it had like real substance and plot to it. That movie doesn't exist. You're either like an indie movie or you're an IP movie. It seems these days,
Yeah,
which is interesting.
that middle threshold that you're talking about, those are on streaming services. So the streamers that will pay between 10, 40 million for like what might be or what might have been a Lifetime movie, which for those of you who are not familiar, cable channel that used to create its own movies, kind of mid-budget, low-budget movies. That's where a lot of those movies are going to. I think that there's less confidence that a rom-com, like Brett Goldstein and Jennifer Lopez just had a rom-com that just dropped on Netflix. I watched it. It was okay. But I think that those kinds of movies, it's difficult to have a value proposition either for the theaters or studios or for the consumers, right? You have a low budget indie movie, that's a strong value prop, frankly, for the distributors. It's low risk. If you spend a ton of money, it's equally attractive because production costs and number of theaters, it's been demonstrated in academic literature, it's been demonstrated in industry reports, are strong bellwethers for great revenue. And so if you're spending a ton, if Ryan Reynolds is in tights or if it's Hugh Jackman or whoever it is, yeah, you're probably going to make your 3 to 5 times multiple on the superhero movie, whatever it might be. And so you have this kind of weird conundrum where, like, why are we doing Red One with The Rock and Ryan Reynolds on, I think it's on Amazon or it might be on Netflix. I think it's on Amazon actually. You know, it it costs nothing for some of these big Fang or Mang firms to create these kinds of movies. They're meant to really create buzz. They often don't perform that well, but that middle part of me that you're talking about, there is still some frustration, I think, in understanding where that sits entirely.
Mm, super interesting. We have at least one person in the Q&A who also disliked that rom-com. So, star Jennifer Lopez. So, there may be other people who feel similarly. So Anthony, before we get too deep into that conversation, we'll come back to it, I promise, for our listeners. What got you to Dart?
Luck is what got me to Darden, and I think anything short of that would be arrogant and just not the full picture. So, I earned my master's at Newhouse at Syracuse. I earned my PhD at UF in media, and like I said, I'm currently the grad student in MS and Eco. Um, Back in 2015, graduated with my PhD from UF, went to work for Ipsos for about a year, didn't really like it. I was copying and pasting data into Dex, kind of saying, why am I here? I have a PhD. I thought I was going to be doing more robust things. So I was very disappointed with the job. I wanted to stay in New York, and I did the thing that everybody tells you not to do, which is do not work at a community college if you have aspirations of working at someplace better. Just for those of you who are not familiar, academia is very much a caste system, very hierarchical, is very, very difficult to move up. I'll just leave it at that. And so it has those kind of elements in it baked in. So I did 2 years at CUNY LaGuardia Community College. Excellent experience. I got to work with everyone. I basically had students from every corner of the globe. I was in Queens, New York, which I think has the most diversity of any place on earth, I believe, at the very least, the United States. So it was a wonderful opportunity to just work with everyone. And it felt that way. Every class looked like the United Nations, and it was great. I then moved to St. John's University, which was fine. I wasn't terribly happy there. And so I saw this visiting assistantship for Darden. And I mentioned it to a colleague of mine and was like, oh my God, you know, my friend just graduated from there. He loved it. You'd be perfect there. I'm like, it's a business school. Like, I kind of do business research at the time. And I was like, but I publish in media and, the media and comm journals. I wasn't very clear that they would want me. So I applied. I was second for the position. The first person delayed their acceptance. They came the year after. And so I was given an opportunity to kind of shine. And I knew that this was, as my cousin Jason will say, winning the lottery. My cousin Jason is a makeup artist at SNL. He's won a ton of Emmys. He's well decorated. And he feels the same way about working on Saturday Night Live. I won the lottery. Now what do I do with the earnings? And so that was kind of echoing in my head. I had this opportunity. What do I do with the earnings? Like, how do I stay here? So I interviewed 30 faculty on how to teach case. At this point, I've watched over 20 classes from other faculty taught to get good at it. And I worked to try to become undeniable. And I'm very grateful that Darden elected to keep me. And I've been lucky to be at Darden since.
What a great story. I love the hustle in that story, just the scrappiness.
It was a lot of hustle. And I came in August of 2020. And so that was, yeah, I know. Like, that was like, okay, I'm going to pack up everything. My girlfriend, now my wife, is in Connecticut. And I'm going to like do this 1 year thing because I think that there's an opportunity here for me to grow and for me to run through walls. And the truth is, there is. I will tell all of you that I know that pamphlets are shiny. And some people may say, like, well, is this really the case? Like, is this really true? Is this smoke and mirrors? I will tell you this, no place is perfect, but Darden does a hell of a job in backing up what it claims. Since I have been here as a faculty member, I have been treated exceptionally well. This place is like heaven. This place is kind of like a unicorn. Yes, the faculty actually want to hang out with you guys. Yes, the faculty actually want to teach you guys. Yes, we want to meet with you and hear about your careers. We're actually engaged in that. We hold research very closely to our hearts, as we do with business case writing. And in fact, students have opportunities to write business cases with faculty. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I've completed 2 machine learning boot camps, an MBA boot camp, now MS in Eco. Darden has backed all of that. And so Darden is a place where they support the faculty very well, which I think spills over into the classroom. Students also feel very well prepared and very supported by faculty.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Anthony. And I agree. I think all your point around the emphasis on teaching and engagement with the students. I think people ask us all the time what makes Darden unique. I think that is something that stands out, at least in my mind. People think about graduate education, graduate business school education. They may not necessarily think that faculty sometimes see teaching as the thing that they have to do so that they can do the thing that they want to do. Whereas here at Darden, the people who come to Darden, who stay at Darden, are people who really want to engage with students in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I will tell you this, we value very closely and in a very, very white hot, intense manner, the ability to engage with students from industry, from practice, to bring our own research into the classroom and to create a tertiary form of education. That's the magic. That's the secret sauce, is that a lot of our lectures, a lot of what we do with case method, a lot of the cases we bring into the classroom, we've written. Where are they from? A lot of them are from our own research. And so the opportunity to work with fine executives, managers, directors, like all of you on this call, to say, how can I elevate my research? And then in return, how is my research making you question maybe what you did or maybe what you didn't do on the job, is a wonderful feedback loop. And Thomas Jefferson, who is the father of UVA, talked a lot about faculty learning along with students and not necessarily having a hierarchical structure, but a little bit more of a flat structure. Maybe not perfectly flat, but approaching that. So everybody's an equal stakeholder in the classroom through and through.
You also teach in the MS in Business Analytics program, in addition to teaching MBA students. What do you enjoy about working with MSBA students?
MSBA students are great because if you teach them something because they're currently working, they'll tell you if they brought it into their job the next day. And I ask them that. I'll ask 60 students in front of me, what are you seeing on the job? You've been with me for 6 weeks. What are you seeing? What are you noticing? Where are you growing? What's not working for you? Darden faculty go beyond teaching evals. We care about them, but we are eager to ask very, let's say, very risky questions that might expose us, but we want to have honest conversations. I am elated when students will come back to me and tell me, ThinkCell, that tool in PowerPoint has aided me in making better charts, better graphs. Tableau, what you taught me with Tableau, is aiding me in elevating my work for my boss, or clients are beginning to notice. I hear this all the time. And so it's great to hear feedback from them, but also work with them in a very aggressive manner because we are on such a short timeline. They're very much part of me locked in, I think, because they have that year, right? It's just a year. And they're full-time students along with working full-time. So my hat, if I was wearing one, would be off to them. And it often is, at least metaphorically, because the workload that they're asked to do and what they're asked to execute every year is awe-inspiring.
Well, Anthony, I want to talk about some of the classes you teach here at Darden. Data storytelling. Tell us more about this course.
Yeah, data storytelling has fortunately taken off like a bottle rocket. I've been very grateful for that. So when I came to Darden, I was told that this just was an area that just needed to be addressed. I sort of knew data storytelling, but I didn't really. And so I went ahead and I interviewed 30 Darden alumni who graduates. And I asked them about it. And I asked them what were pitfalls that MBA students faced. And I asked them, where do MBA students struggle on the job? And what do they, need help with? And so from that, I developed a course after reading a bunch of books as well, on data storytelling. And so the crux of the class is to simulate high pressure situations every week. I want students sweating and struggling with love. I play music at the beginning of class. We play music videos. I'm not cracking a whip by any measure. We do have a fun time with it. But I want students to get out of their own way. I want students to get out of their own mental blocks. I want students to be confident that if I call them up randomly, that they're ready to present. So the way the class works is we begin with a white paper, Bain, McKinsey, BCG, one of the big consulting firms, or maybe an iBanking firm, or maybe a bank or whomever. We critique white papers. We look at charts. What do we like? What do we not like? What spoke to us? We then go into the case. The case might be about 15 to 20 minutes. Students are broken out then into groups for 30 to 40 minutes. Every week, you're in a different group. You might have same members here and there, but hopefully it's a different group. You work in 30 to 40-minute sprints. You come back to class, two groups present comments and critiques from the group. And then I work on 100 slides at night very quickly. I turn around comments. You're giving comments the next day. You have a managerial curveball. Your managing director wants you to do something else aside from the edits that you have. And you're given more time, usually about 40 to 50 minutes to make those edits. And two more groups come up to present comments and critiques as well. And so it is a class that is meant to be a grind. But I will tell you, I recently just got a message from somebody who's at BCG who said they are so impressed with I saw the email, they're impressed with my PowerPoint template so much so they want to teach AI it. So essentially, they want the internal AI LLM to adopt how he's articulating charts because they like his style. And I get dozens of those messages every summer. In fact, I'll be checking on my students probably in a month from now as internships wind down to ask them how data storytelling has done. I'm lucky. I think the last 4 or 5 years, it's been the number one class rated by first years. And so, it's awesome that that's the case, but it's also an awesome responsibility to keep it going, to keep it fresh, to see, what else can be changed, what else can be improved. I'm currently talking to administration about shadowing one of the big firms in their media departments so that I can, one, see how slide creation is being done now by McKinsey, Bain, BCG, but also some of the issues clients in media and entertainment have as well. So as you can imagine, Brett, that's going to help me in twofold for that matter.
Yeah, I know that's a class that is particularly popular with full-time MBA students as they prepare for their summer internships. But you teach that across other programs too, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I have it in MSBA. It's a little bit more relaxed. I can't do sprints with them necessarily as I can with the full timers. It's also a different population. And so, in the consulting world, in the iBanking world, time is of the essence. Whereas I think MSBA students typically are in fields that are, let's say, a little bit more relaxed. And the same with MBAs. But yes, I taught this across part-time MBAs, executive MSBA, exec ed, and full-time. Frankly, Brett, I've taught this across every format, but for the PhDs, which I don't think they're going to want this anyway. They probably don't need it. So yeah, I think I've been across every degree program. Wow.
Yeah, that's impressive. Sometimes you'll hear across all MBA programs, but to also incorporate MSBA in there is very impressive. You
Yeah.
also teach media and entertainment business. That's an elective that students can take. Obviously, you're very passionate about media and entertainment. That's basically kind of where we began our conversation.
That's
Tell
right.
us a bit more about this elective.
Yeah. So this elective just came out of my own research. And so I have wanted to teach this and wanted to make this a staple. I have heard that Darden students were clamoring for more second year electives as well. So it felt like a good opportunity to see if I could introduce something. So the way that this class works is that we have a lot of white papers from Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, all of those kinds of things to begin each class or most classes. And so we'll go through current events and things of that sort. There are industry cases that are built around my research. There is one in particular where I had built a natural language processing dashboard with 25,000 TV scripts so that you're able to look at the emotion arcs and see how you can predict viewership in millions for the next episode, the stickiness factor for certain episodes, and think through what does this mean for management? What does this mean for artist relationships? How might you employ such a program or software? What does it mean for optimizing art? Can you optimize art? We also have a case that I wrote that deals with protagonists going through a museum and thinking about why we need art. And there's another case on why we need artists. We also have stuff that deals with finances. And so I'm going to be offering a case this upcoming year that looks at Versant and its toxic assets. And so I am eager to continue to kind of build this class around a little bit more data science, a little bit more finance every year. We look at television, movies, and gaming, and we do deep dives. The last thing I'll say about this class is the way the cadence usually works is 2 classes on the subject. The third class is a panel. Sometimes I'll fly in writers and producers and executives. Other times we'll do it by Zoom, but there are 3 panels: a TV panel, a film panel, and a video game panel. Good news, Brett, is we are beginning to land students in media and entertainment a little bit more transparently, let's say, or a little bit more visibly. So we recently had somebody go to the Nationals this year. I've had students go to Meta. We keep having more and more students now coming to Comcast. We've had students at Microsoft, Xbox. And so the wheels are beginning to, I'd love to think that it's all due to me, but I know full well that's not the case. But it's nice to see the wheels going, and it's nice to see students having the confidence in pursuing some of these industries that might seem out of reach.
Yeah, that is very cool. I mean, entertainment media seems like one of those industries lots of people want to work in it. How do you break in? How do you find a way in? I assume this class is a helpful talking point of connection. Like, how do you see this class helping students who have that industry goal?
So one thing that came out of the interviews that I did about 15 or 20 interviews with media executives before building this class out, was they need to know and understand why there's consolidation in the marketplace. Mergers and acquisition strategy is something that they need to be mindful of. So I made that an assignment. And so there's an assignment where they have to look at who should merge with who should acquire who. And so from this, they are able to build in financial calculations and NPV models, financial multiples, whatever they want to do. And then at the end of the class, I bundle all of the assignments together and give them to the students. I ask for their permission, of course, but they walk away, Brett, with it's like 200 slides of just information on top of meeting executives, producers, and writers. And that the final project is similar, where they have to forecast out what the future of media will look like 5 years from now. This is something else that directors, executives are hired on, that I was told. So I also made that an assignment. And so I think, again, it's not measurable. So, we're speaking anecdotally. I think that those assignments force students to get into uncomfortable scenarios and scenarios that a lot of people aren't thinking about, but they are told to look at 10Ks. We have spent a whole class looking at media 10K reports. They get comfortable with that. They get comfortable looking at white papers from other firms as well. And so I think all of those things hopefully is the springboard and some of the reason why some of these students are beginning to land really great sports, media, and entertainment positions.
I want to pick up on a few things in our Q&A. We have somebody recommending Voicemail for Isabel on Netflix. Are you familiar with this, Anthony? Have you come across this yet?
Yeah.
It's saying that maybe this is reminiscent of 2000 rom-coms, maybe will resonate with Gen Z. I know we talked about Gen Z kind of like maybe being interested in something that's uniquely for them.
Yes. 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 I am aware of it as I try. You know what the funny thing is? I try to be aware of a lot of things that I never get to just because I want to seem like I'm plugged in. But yes, I am absolutely aware of it. Also, my daughter's name is Isabella. So anything with Isabel or Isabella is going to catch my attention. But yes, that is on my radar, as is a ton of things. I was just telling Brett before the call, I'm currently watching something bad, very bad is about to happen on Netflix. And then I have to catch up on The Bear. I'm also wrapping up Your Friends and Neighbors with John Hamm on Apple TV, and I'm trying to squeeze a video game in there somehow. And I have Obsession to see this week in the movie theater, so it never ends. But yes, that is on my list.
Are you going to document your experience of going to see Obsession, which has been part of seeing Obsession? Is this sort of social media angle to it?
I don't know that anybody wants to see my face. As it is, I'm pretty animated and sometimes I jump, which makes my wife laugh. So I don't know that anybody needs to know what scares Anthony and then bring that into the darting classroom.
It's been interesting though. Like people like basically with their camera on in the movie theater, either
Yeah.
recording a friend themselves watching this movie. That is a little different for movie going
Well,
experience.
and that comes out of like Twitch. Like everybody here online who probably has watched other people play games, like Twitch is really big on that, right? There's a whole culture in watching people, like watching other people do things on social media, DIY stuff. And now we're at a point where, yeah, like recording scare jumps and like reactions and stuff, like is really, really fascinating. And it's palpable because it's real. And I think in a very roundabout way, people want to see realness, and capturing sudden jolts and bursts is one way to do that. It's entertaining.
We had someone recommending Widow's Bay to you as well.
I just finished it. Excellent. If you have not seen Widow's Bay on Apple, Matt Reese is incredible. Believe it or not, he's got a thick Welsh accent, but you never hear it on it. Stephen Root is amazing. The whole cast is phenomenal. Widow's Bay on Apple TV. It's a horror comedy. It's a little goofy at first, but there is comedy there. So you just have to go into knowing it. But it's excellent. It's got a very nice New England feel to it. Great recommendation.
Nice, maybe perfect for the summer. New England,
Yeah.
gosh, why not?
Yeah.
Question here, comment maybe. Interested in hearing what you think about micro short films on social media that are attracting attention. Do you feel like they're disrupting the movie landscape in any way?
So it's kind of interesting, right? Because we've had this going on for quite some time. If you recall, a few years ago, I think it was Paramount who got in trouble for showing Mean Girls. It was like 18 or 19 clips, Brett. It was like 3, 4 minutes. So essentially you're showing the whole movie, but you're not compensating any of the artists involved. So a lot of people got, as you can imagine, rightly so, pissed off. So we've had instances of this, we've had machinations of this before. Do I think it's disruptive? Joe Rogan still has podcasts that are over 3 hours long. Euphoria, which has wrapped up its third and final season, still has episodes that are absolutely, absolutely way, way long, right? So there is still, I think, an appetite for long form media among young people, but it's got to be done right. There have to be surprises, shocks, twists. It can't have the expectation that you're so grateful that we're here. No, you should be grateful that the audience is here. And how are you still pulling them into conversations? So there's still a hunger for that. It is another medium that I think will shrink the pie further, right? When television came, radio didn't go away, but its share got a little bit smaller. When gaming came along, TV and films are still here, but its share got a little smaller. Yeah, there's going to be some shrinkage going on when you have micro verticals and micro dramas going on. I think Variety had an article on it in November, and it was slated to be like a $30 billion industry, right? You're talking about episodes. These episodes, Brett, go for like $50,000-$100,000 to make. I mean, it's pennies. It's pennies. And so you're able to kind of flip through and watch everything. It's a boon for advertisers, I think, who are looking for opportunities to get in ads. It cuts down production costs. And I think it's another way to kind of have a happy medium between maybe you can't lock in people for a half hour, but maybe people feel a different kind of satiation in consuming a whole season in a half hour. It's an interesting perspective, too, when we think about how much of a celebrity do you need to see or do you not need to see? Like, is it beneficial for Nicole Kidman to do this? I think of Eminem, I think of Adele, I think of Lady Gaga, who are excellent in being out of the limelight and being in the limelight, right? Like we only hear about Eminem when something drops, otherwise dead silence. And there's a way in which you manage your brand by not always being in the spotlight. So this might also have the risk of either overexposure or maybe being like Oh, well, Brett hasn't heard from me in a few years. I make movies now. Here's me doing a season of whatever, which is a micro vertical drama, while I am filming three movies and I'm about to be everywhere in 2027 or 2028. So I could see this having a few different purposes, but micro dramas are quickly growing. It's a great industry to get into because people are still figuring out, which means that it's kind of open. Whereas I think other firms have more traditional verticals and such for positions.
I want to talk about the gaming industry. We haven't touched on that much. Are there any stories in the gaming industry that you're following closely?
Brett, when is GTA coming out? Holy cow, GTA 6. When is this coming out? Strauss, of the CEO from Take Two, I just heard an investor call from him yesterday. It's coming. It's coming. It is coming. Within the next 6 to 8 months, it's coming. I don't think they're going to delay it any longer. The price point is about $80. And, Brett, for the longest time, gaming from the early 90s to probably 2015 was about $60, right? That price point was it. It didn't budge, it didn't move. It kind of had the razor blade model, right? Like, we're going to take a loss on the consoles, but we want to make sure that you guys buy your 6 to 8 different video games for your Super Nintendo, your N64, your PlayStation 3, whatever it is. And so I have a PlayStation 5 now that was like $500 or something like that. And I know that the new Steam console that came out is about $1,000, I think. But you can take your games with you, and a lot of people like Steam because it's more like a PC. It's not really a console. It enables you to kind of have your own video games, kind of walk with them, and there's a lot of cool indie gaming stuff going on as well. I played Cuphead for those of you watching, like love Cuphead. So gaming is in an interesting place because there's been layoffs, there's been some slowdown, and I think people are realizing that you don't need to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to accelerate a gaming product. I think that has created this issue where you have this effect where you kind of keep having to raise the bar, keep having to raise the bar, and it may not be necessary to have all the bells and whistles. Now, that being said, GTA 6 has to be a 10 out of 10 because otherwise it will be a massive disappointment. But this is what you grapple with, I think, with IP and content. And again, as we've talked about before, there is this perennial tension between distribution and content. And right now in gaming, we're absolutely in a distribution era. There's some consolidation. I mentioned the layoffs earlier, but I am very much excited that I think when things kind of take it easy, we figure out all of the layoffs, we figure out what the new landscape looks like, I think there will be a renaissance of content, particularly with a lot of the AI tools out there. As I said, for TV and movies, individuals are beginning to make games that are found on stores and things like that. And the indie games have caught up, Brett. Like, the indie games are really, really fun. Little Nightmares. I can drop a few other indie games. I'm currently playing Mouse Detective, which is like a cartoon noir out of the 40s and 50s, but it's obviously for adults. But like, the animation is incredible. Like, in the different genres that people are pulling together. The Midnight Walk, excellent artistic game that just, oh my God, highly recommend the Midnight Walk. Um, all of those kind of indie games are speaking to me more than mainstream. Sorry to ramble, but those are all of the thoughts ping-ponging in my head right now.
And for non-gamers, GTA is Grand Theft Auto.
Oh,
Place
pardon
where
me, Grand Theft Auto.
yeah,
Yes.
just want to make sure everybody might be wondering what that is.
Yes, Grand Theft Auto.
Question here in the Q&A. What do you think about EA Sports going private? Any thoughts on that?
Oh, the Saudis want to be legitimate. And I think legitimate in this case means are not that they're doing anything illegal necessarily, but legitimate in the eyes of American consumers that we can buy from Saudis, that weird relationships surrounding socio-political issues with oil, with other things, with war, whatever it might be, kind of goes to the background, right? And so, again, to be clear, I'm not accusing them of anything illegal, but almost in a way, I would argue they're washing their reputation or becoming more palatable, becoming more acceptable, getting into media and entertainment, which of course are leisure activities that are supported by a middle class, right? Your country doesn't have a burgeoning media and entertainment sector if they are struggling to put food on the table, right? And media and entertainment are luxuries to have. They're nice things to have. I would argue we need them, but I'm biased, obviously, but they're not necessarily an essential part of surviving in life, though, again, I would argue differently. So the Saudis' investments are interesting. I don't know what it will mean in the future for how installations are put out. Sports games tend to avoid being too political. So I don't see like them dropping the American flag from stadiums, or if they have some sort of war with somebody, that there might be some sort of socio-political messaging going on. But sports are addictive. It's a good business to be in. Video game engagement is high. One of the big issues around gaming right now is, and I saw this in a different 10K that I was looking at for Take Two Interactive, the Rockstar people, the Grand Theft Auto people, the NBA 2K people. Advertisement revenue doesn't budge, Brett. It doesn't change. They have a hell of a time figuring out where to put product placement, brand placement, all of those things in gaming. And it makes sense. You don't want to interrupt the gaming experience with too many ads, right? But the Saudis may have a different perspective on that, and maybe they'll be able to solve that. The other thing is they're really getting into hospitality and travel. And so gaming is a really great way, I would argue, if it's articulated well, to have an hour-long commercial for, like, I don't know, the Saudi soccer team or something, or what Saudi Arabia may look like, or what other parts of the Middle East may look like, right? And you don't know that you're being advertised to. So I think that there are a lot of opportunities here to advertise and to market in non-traditional formats.
Yeah, for folks who haven't followed that story, was Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, or PIF as it's known, spent $55 billion to acquire a majority stake, I think so almost 94% in EA Sports, which, all kinds of sporting games associated with that firm. We have a question here about subscription fatigue. We live in a world that is now, we had cable back in the day. Now we all have, 5, 6 different subscriptions, all these different services. Is it on this? Oh no, wait, you got to go to this other. I got to sign up for this now. Do you think people getting tired of all this? Do you think there's a point where, people will hit a wall and we'll have some other kind of approach?
Oh, people are already tired. That's not the issue. The issue is we don't have good substitutes right now. That's the problem, Brett. And so, yes, I've known for a decade people are tired of this. There's no question. My parents used to just turn on cable or satellite and they would just find what they needed to, right? Every cable channel is on an even playing field, which meant every cable channel could equally experiment. I want to hit you on that a little bit. Now everybody's on their own island. Disney is on its own island. Yeah, there's a bundle with Hulu and ESPN. Sometimes Apple does a bundle with Comcast. Fine, whatever, who cares? Each of these entertainment firms now operates on their own island. So for one, they don't take the amount of risk taking, I would argue, that might have been done in the 90s and in the aughts has been stymied a little bit. Yes, we're still seeing, I would argue, some groundbreaking television. I would argue we could see more of it if everybody came together in one bundle that everybody had, and there was one ad currency that everybody could agree with. It's like the airplane industry, right, Brett? Like everybody has to use the same terminal, and United works right next to JetBlue. They're competitors. Sometimes they'll partner together if like a flight goes awry, right? Like, oh, we're going to put you guys on like United, or even though this is Delta or like whatever. So I think more of that partnership needs to happen. We'll all get a break, maybe. On the other hand, we're seeing some consolidation, which to me isn't a good thing. Everything goes. I imagine by 2028, Paramount Warner Brothers will be one. If you guys are not aware of this, Paramount has swallowed Warner Brothers up, Warner Brothers Discovery to be exact. And so that's one less place for creatives to go to sell scripts, to do really groundbreaking stuff. Although, again, there's also this opportunity, I think, for artists just to do their own thing. YouTube is free. we're able to find a lot of great content on YouTube. Yeah, there's a lot of garbage there too, but there's also a lot of great content there. And so I think it really kind of comes down to substitutes and the willingness of entertainers like Leo DiCaprio, Margot Robbie, Kat Dennings on CBS and Two Broke Girls and things like that, for them to say, you know what, I know the 10, 15 people that I like, I know the writers that I like, I know the director that I like. We can have a skeleton crew, we can do this, and we can put something on YouTube. The thing is, the distribution dollars, like the dollars that studios will pay, way higher than what YouTube will pay, because there's no subscription unless you're doing YouTube TV. Otherwise, you're getting paid with ad revenue. And YouTube knows that, like, they cracked the case, Brett. Like, you don't pay for any of the content that you're like, I can upload a video. They're not paying me for that. They don't pay a dime to anybody for content. I mean, unless it's curated and they desperately want it. And it might be some movies they're licensing, something like that. And so that's kind of the challenge that people are up against. TikTok also, by the way, doesn't pay for anything. It's brilliant. It's just a platform. So because of that, there's a lot of pressure on studios and distributors to say, no, like, we've got to hike up our prices, and we've got to think about price elasticities and what we can get away with and all of those other things. So there are alternatives out there. I think the other part of the problem, then I'll stop, is we're not seeing Widow's Bay on YouTube. We're not seeing Severance on YouTube, right? Once we start to see really groundbreaking shows say, you know what? I'm going to cut my costs way down and I'm going to make my fortune on YouTube. Once that dam breaks, I would be stressed out if I was Netflix. Netflix is already stressed out, by the way, by YouTube, because they don't pay for half. They pay a fraction what Netflix pays for content.
And we now live in this world where, do you want ads? Do you want no ads? Like, just all kinds of tiering that does feel complicated. What do you think about Fox acquiring Roku? This happened. Maybe a little bit overshadowed by some of the Paramount Warner Brothers story, but this did happen. It's happening, I guess.
It did happen. So, for those of you not familiar, back in 2019, Disney took over TV and movies from Fox, kind of leaving behind sports and news for Rupert Murdoch and his two sons, two heirs, which, by the way, Succession is largely based on the HBO show. And so I think a lot of people discounted that Fox wasn't going to do much of anything, but then it surprised me. Although, funny enough, Brett, I think I've had at least two student groups in the past recommend Fox and Tubi get together, or like Fox and Roku get together. So it made me laugh, actually, because that was like the second thing. I'm like, I've seen this. Why have I seen this before? I'm like, oh, I think I've had some student groups actually pitch this. So there you go with the intelligence of Darden students. So Fox is aging. That's the first thing to know, right? So Fox News, Fox, a lot of the offerings are just old, and without just kind of getting to the point. I think that they're struggling to keep young viewers. I think that they're struggling to understand, how do you hold on to older viewers but get younger ones? Younger ones need better advertisement margins, because young people traditionally spend $100 on a bottle of water because it has Armani Exchange on it, and it will make you smell hot enough to get the hot girl that you want at the bar. The same thing with tennis shoes, which are high margin items. Cars, right? Like, if you think about the different kinds of goods and services that are sold to 20-year-olds through 30-year-olds, even 40-year-olds, like, it's high margin stuff. So, Fox wants to get into that business because it's lucrative and it makes sense. The other thing that Roku offers is it has the infrastructure, Brett. It has the infrastructure for smart TV, for following apps, for following where to place ads, to understand viewership behavior. And so, rather than build it out and begin to understand, how do I become the next Netflix when it comes to data? They have it. Roku was started by Anthony Wood, who, if memory serves right, was an employee at Netflix. And so that was kind of an incubation project that obviously took off, and Netflix really didn't want much to do with it. But there were some murmurs that Netflix might become that smart app TV thing that's everywhere, wound up being Roku instead. So this is an incredible opportunity. Never mind the fact they have a store of data on all of the other competitors. And so Fox has also struggled with IP. It remains to be seen how much they will want to spend on IP. Yes, Roku has Tubi, so there's some content there, but it's largely a lot of free ad-supported television. Fox is now the undisputed king, I would argue, of free ad-supported television or fast channels, where you can just click onto the app, you can go to the Law and Order channel, which is a very, very popular franchise here in the United States, 30 plus years of Law and Order, Law and Order SVU. It's a lot of crime and police and lawyers and things like that. And you can watch it for the whole day, no problem. So that is a different kind of viewing. That's a different kind of marketplace. And frankly, aside from Pluto TV and a few others, Fox is looking really good if they want to play in that playground.
I appreciate that the thoughtful analysis. I will
Yeah.
say the Fox Disney thing. As someone who loves the Alien franchise,
Yeah.
that I took that acquisition hard because Alien's not going to be the same coming out under Disney as it would be just Fox. Fox, he's historically that took more risk, was not necessarily concerned with reaching I think more of a family-oriented audience, was willing to sort of push the line a little bit more. So, the Alien franchise felt a little bit different.
Well, remember Miramax, which was under Disney, like put out Good Will Hunting and put out other things. So there are always sub labels that can, still put out the good stuff that you're looking for, Brett. But yeah, I mean that's kind of what makes this interesting, right? Like, are different sub labels able to act as their own, or are they going to be informed by Papa Disney or Mama Disney? Right? We don't know, right? What's the smart thing to do? Hands off. Like Fox has got a brand. Alien took a lot of big swings. Ridley Scott has been fantastic for that franchise. Leave it alone, which Disney historically has been pretty good with. Can't say the same for Nintendo or some of the other media and entertainment conglomerates out there, but Disney largely is okay with like, oh, this is adult. Let me not, put mouse ears on it, if you will.
Well, we got a couple questions in the Q&A, and I recognize we got a few minutes left here. People are wondering what makes for a really persuasive presentation? Like, in your opinion, when you're working with students, and not just looking to inform people, but to persuade people.
I think everything comes down to the bottom line up front, the bluff statement, personally. So, for those of you who are not familiar with that, you'll have an introductory cover slide. You'll then have, I would argue, a bluff slide. So, that bottom line up front should be the recommendation. It should include a KPI. And so, we need to do this, this, and this to get this, or to increase this, or to decrease this, right? That KPI should be attached directly to the audience in the room. If it's not, they will not care about it. They've got other things going on. So make sure that that is attached to it. The sub points that you might have after you have that right at the top, that recommendation, you should have sub bullets that tell them why exactly they should be doing this. And yes, it does mean that you're giving away part of your presentation, but you want to build tension. The bullets should demonstrate what other competitors are doing, what they're missing out on. If they don't do this, make people sweat. I scream this at my students. They don't really scream it. I kind of shout it and I'm smiling. So it's not that bad. But make people sweat. If I don't do this, what am I missing? You were telling me my competitors are doing this. How do I stack up? Right? Then you create tension. This is just like a movie, right? What is versus what could be. What is right now is Thanos, the Joker. Some villain is coming to town and is wreaking havoc. What could be? We could defeat them. How do we get there? It's the same thing we see in movies and television. Create tension, create conflict. In the beginning of your presentation, you're going to have lock-in and you can guide people along.
Wow, I've never considered creating tension in my presentations. I'm gonna think about that, Anthony.
Anything you want, Brett. I can give you all my materials. We can talk more about it. No problem. Make people sweat. That's what I'm after.
I love that. We have someone recommending or asking if you know about Unhinged, an interactive horror game on Netflix where users use their smartphones to guide the characters. This sounds very interesting. Maybe worth investigating. Apparently,
I think I've heard of it, but no. I might need to look unhinged on that. Okay. I'm gonna look into that. I have a smartphone, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously, but like obviously. Uh, so I need to unhinged. Okay. The weekend's coming up. I might have to spend some time on that. It's on Netflix. Okay. I want to check that out. Thank you for the rec.
well, Anthony, we normally close by asking people for a few book recommendations, but just given your interests, is there a movie, TV show, game recommendation? You obviously shared a lot already, but things that you would recommend for this audience to check out.
Oh gosh. Well, you know what? The latest season of Ted Lasso is coming. If you haven't seen Ted Lasso, the newest season drops in August after I think it's been 3 years, Brett. Um, I'm excited for Ted Lasso. I think Ted Lasso really resonated with people during the pandemic because it was a very hopeful show, and it's just really good. Shrinking on Apple TV with Jason Segel and Harrison Ford is hysterical. Ted McGinley from Married with Children is in it as well. It's fantastic. Shrinking is perfect. Something very bad is going to happen on Netflix. I'm watching right now is a slow burn. It's excellent. My suspicion is that it might have some Obsession vibes, but I haven't seen Obsession. I've obviously seen the trailer, but it's got that essence. So if some of you are still kind of obviously, if you have not seen the entire uh, canon of Stranger Things, please stop what you're doing and please do that. Finally, I will say The Bear. I think if you want to sweat, speaking of sweating, and Brett can attest to this because him and I both watched The Bear, that show will make you sweat. It is artisanal. It is done to the highest quality. It is fine dining for the eyes. The Bear is just, I still think it is underrated given everything I've seen in it.
I fully agree with your assessment of the Bear. I have to check out those others, but man, the music in the Bear, I love the soundtrack, the small details, like just how just they get so much right in that show. If you ever worked in a restaurant or anything, that sort of chaos of that. The one they did this like cold open of Chicago and kind of like going around like Chicago opening up in the morning, different businesses and things with Eddie Vedder singing "Save It for Later" in the background. It's like still one of the greatest 2 3 minutes of television I feel like I've seen in the past 2 years. It's just so well done, so artistic.
My favorite episode is season 3, episode 1. There are no lines. The way that it's done is so cinematic. There's music the whole time, and you're just watching people do it. But it's still engrossing. It's still captivating. Man, go see The Bear. It's all of those. All of those, I think, are fantastic.
Well, Anthony, thank you so much for your time. I always enjoy having you on office hours. I always come away with a whole bunch of things that I need to watch or see or think about. So to our attendees today, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you have a few things to watch this weekend in addition to the World Cup. And we'll be back in July, on July 24th, with a conversation with Shane DeColey, member of our accounting faculty. So, Anthony, thank you so much for your time. Great to see you as
Thank you,
always.
Brett. Great to see you.
Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend.
See you guys. Feel free to link in with me. Feel free to reach out, Anthony Palomba, LinkedIn, email me, whatever you need. But I wish you the best of luck, guys. Have a very good weekend.
And that was my office hours conversation with Professor Anthony Palomba, a member of the Data Analytics and Decision Sciences faculty here at the Darden School of Business. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, at virginia.edu. Till next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.